Welcome to the deep dive, where we take the crucial sources you need, cut through all that information overload, and really hand you the precise strategy required to master your challenge.
Mm.
Today, we are tackling something huge. I mean, a truly monumental and deeply personal endeavor, the decision to return home to Jamaica.
It's one of the biggest life transitions anyone can make, really.
Huh?
It's so packed with emotion and hope, but then you get underneath all that,
Hmm.
and it's a massive project.
A project.
A project that is just fraught with complex logistics and a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. We have to move past the dream and get right into the reality of execution.
Exactly. And to help us convert that dream into a practical blueprint, we are diving deep into what has to be the definitive resource on this topic. It's the Jamaica Returning Residents Guide, specifically the 2025 First Consultation Edition.
Okay.
Our source material is authored by Dean Jones. He's a chartered builder, project manager, realtor, and the founder of Jamaica Home. So, this isn't just a travel book.
Not at all. This is 2 decades of high-level project management discipline, but applied to relocation.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is the author's dual identity.
Right. Dean Jones has the technical expertise. We're talking 20 years in real estate and project management, including senior leadership overseas. He even references working on, critical infrastructure like the Palace of Westminster security program.
Oh.
So that experience instilled a very structured, disciplined, systems-based approach.
That structural discipline is so crucial, but what I think really elevates this guide is how he complements it with his deep Jamaican roots.
Hmm.
He's a descendant of the Maroons, so he's navigating the property market not just as, a builder, but as someone who truly understands the local culture, the resilience, and the community dynamics.
Absolutely. And that's why the mission of this deep dive is to convert that emotional desire for relocation into what Jones calls a true homecoming. He's very direct about it.
How's
He says you have to blend that overseas efficiency with the local reality. You have to recognize that Jamaica might not be the same place you left. And sometimes, and this is the hard truth, it may not always love you back.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. And it means you need structure. You need a plan to survive the inevitable challenges.
So whether you're planning retirement, maybe a career pivot, or you're just seeking to reconnect with your roots, we're aiming to give you the ultimate shortcut to being well-informed. We're moving from sentiment to strategy.
Let's start with the emotional context, because that's really the engine behind this whole journey. The source says, for every Jamaican abroad, the pole of the island lives quietly in the heart. What does that internal yearning look like in practice?
It's this constant, subtle gravitational pull. It surfaces when you're abroad, and you get that craving for a very specific flavor of ackee and saltfish.
Right, not the canned stuff. No, not the canned version, the real thing. It's the patois that just slips out when you're tired, or that sudden feeling of nostalgia triggered by a specific reggae song. Jones really emphasizes that returning home is physical, it's spiritual, emotional, and generational.
Generational, that's interesting.
Yeah, you're not just moving your furniture. You are replanting roots for yourself and, potentially for future generations to come.
But that mindset shift is the necessary checkpoint before you even think about the physical move. If you left Jamaica as a teenager 30 years ago, you just can't expect to return to that exact memory.
Precisely. You have to embrace the current reality, what the guide calls the welcome to Jamrock perspective. Jamaica has grown and evolved so much. It's experienced high inflation, huge technological shifts, demographic changes. To be successful, you must honor the memory, but you have to operate within the current reality.
And that requires adopting what the guide calls the truths worth carrying. It's like the cultural software you need for local success. Let's unpack those, maybe starting with the pace of life.
The first truth, and this is probably the most difficult for a returnee, is this. Patience is wisdom time longer than rope. This is absolutely essential for navigating the systems, the bureaucracy, and the local service tempo, which, let's be honest, will likely feel slower than what you're used to overseas.
So you're saying expect delays.
Expect delays and build that slack, that buffer time, into every single plan you make.
And that slack needs a support system, which I think leads right into the second truth.
It does. Community is power. No one thrives alone. Isolation is a huge risk for returnees. You need local networks, trusted professionals, good neighbors, community groups, not just for emotional support, but for vetted information and, frankly, protection against scams.
And since safety is often a concern raised by people thinking about returning,
The guide has a truth for that, too. Safety is strategy, move smart, not fearful.
move smart, not fearful. I like that.
Fear paralyzes you. But smart, strategic moves protect you. This means being discreet about your wealth, thoroughly vetting contractors, and just being situationally aware. It's about behavior modification, not paranoia.
Now, what about the economic side of things?
The fourth truth is, opportunity is here, but look before you leap. The economy is vibrant, especially in sectors like tech, real estate, and BPO. But investment requires deep, local due diligence. Research is absolutely paramount before you hand over any capital.
And all of this sort of ties into that overarching national pride. We like political, but we Dalawa.
It's the resilience mantra, isn't it?
Hmm.
And Jones connects this directly to the role of the returning citizen. The guide calls for constructive contribution. Instead of, constant complaint, which is an easy trap for those used to foreign efficiency, the guide encourages encouragement over division and solutions over cynicism.
It even highlights supporting critical institutions.
Yes, and it specifically references the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the JCF. It notes that while there are challenges, of course, many officers serve quietly and diligently behind the scenes. Your role as a returnee is to support the systems that serve the nation, maybe by participating in neighborhood watch groups, rather than just criticizing from a distance.
That's a fundamental shift, really, moving from being an observer to an active participant and contributor. And this high-level strategy gets systematized through Dean Jones's project management background, which brings us to the 8-step relocation blueprint.
This is the core framework of the entire guide. It treats your return like you would a development project. It emphasizes foresight, strategy, and patience. Skipping even one of these steps significantly increases the project's risk register.
Okay, let's get into it. Step 1.
Step 1. Clarify your why. This sounds simple, but it's crucial. You have to define your core motivation. Is it retirement? A specific career move, caring for elderly parents, cultural reconnection? You have to write it down.
Why write it down?
Because when the inevitable logistical frustrations hit, and they will hit, you will question the entire endeavor. That written why becomes your anchor. It reminds you why you started.
Makes sense. Okay, step 2 is where the rubber really meets the road, location scouting.
Step 2. Scan the landscape, parish shortlist. And please do not buy property based on old memories or a single vacation spot from 10 years ago. You must shortlist 2 to 3 parishes based on cold, hard data, the cost of living, proximity and access to a reliable hospital, road access and traffic density, the safety and community vibe, and crucially, flood and hurricane exposure.
And what's the most essential practical advice here? How do you actually do that?
You must stay 1 to 2 weeks in each shortlisted area. Don't just visit for a day, rent an Airbnb or a short-term rental. Test the commute at peak traffic hours. Seriously, drive it at 8 a.m. Test the availability and pressure of the NWC water supply. Test the local grocery access. A vacation visit is completely different from a daily living test.
I can see how that would be a game changer. All right, step 3 addresses what is probably the most common reason returns fail. Money. Financial stress.
Step 3. Financial preparation. The buffer. The guide insists on 3 key components here. First, a detailed monthly budget. Second, a 10 to 15% contingency buffer on top of that budget. And third, keeping 3 to 6 months of living costs as a separate financial cushion.
Why is that cushion so essential in the Jamaican context specifically?
Because of the high probability of unexpected delays. Pension transfers might be delayed by 3 months. It happens. Construction costs, if you're building or renovating, almost always run over schedule and over budget. The buffer is your insurance against local systems moving slower than you projected.
So you have to map everything out.
Everything. Map all your income streams, pension, rent from a property abroad, local work, and confirm your tax obligations in both jurisdictions before you return.
Okay, step 4 is the big one, the shelter decision. As a project manager, I'm sure Jones has a very clear decision matrix for this.
He does. And the guide strongly recommends you rent first. For 6 to 12 months, especially for any newcomer. This lets you vet the neighborhood and assess property issues, noise, water pressure, all those little things, without a long-term commitment.
And what are the other options if you decide not to rent?
Well, you could buy move-in ready, which has the highest cost but the lowest short-term hassle. You could try a renovation value-add project, but that requires a lot of oversight and time. Or you could build from scratch, which gives you maximum control but also carries the maximum time and risk.
And for any of those buying or building options, the due diligence checklist has to be followed rigorously.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Beyond the standard title search and valuation, you need a surveyor's report. This is so crucial because informal subdivisions and historical boundary disputes are very common in Jamaica.
I can imagine the headaches.
Oh. Jones notes that a boundary headache can cost you 10 times the price of the initial survey to fix. It can potentially delay a sale or development indefinitely. Don't skip it.
Are there any other specialized checks that are required?
Yes. A flood and drainage check is vital, especially if you're looking near gullies or coastal areas. Climate change is increasing those flood risks, and the guide points to a specific NWC water pressure review.
Ah, back to the water.
Always back to the water.
Yeah.
This review identifies whether you'll need a dedicated tank and pump system or if the pressure is adequate year-round. Don't just take the seller's word for it. You have to test it multiple times at different times of day.
All right, moving on to health. Step 5.
Step 5, health and well-being. You have to proactively manage your health transition. This means securing local health insurance. Your overseas policies are rarely accepted, and you need to check your eligibility for the National Health Fund, the NHF, which subsidizes medication for chronic illnesses.
And the guide also advises bringing medication with you.
Yes, keep a 90-day supply of any essential medication you're on to cover that transition period while you get set up locally.
And what about practical emergency preparedness?
The emergency room go bag. This is a lifesaver. It should have your photo ID, a complete list of your medications with dosages, some emergency cash, and a fully charged phone and a charger. Time is so precious in a medical emergency, and having this pre-packed eliminates panic.
That's a great tip. Step 6 focuses on family integration, especially if you have children involved in this homecoming project.
Step 6, family and education. Start gathering documents immediately. Immunization cards, transcripts for school placement, passport copies. The bureaucracy can be slow. You need to shortlist schools, and critically, childcare and safe transport options. Integration is key. The guide suggests using weekend activities or sports clubs to help children adjust quickly.
Then step 7 is the formal gateway, the returning resident pathway itself.
Step 7, legal and immigration, RRP. The core eligibility requirement is being a Jamaican citizen, 18 or older, who has lived abroad for at least 3 consecutive years and intends to settle permanently.
3 consecutive years.
Yes, and the list of required proofs is extensive. Tax returns, utility bills, pay slips, evidence of permanent intent. You have to be organized.
Okay, let's focus on one specific bureaucratic detail the guide mentions. The C-27 form. What is that and why is it so vital?
The C-27 is the unaccompanied baggage form. It is the official declaration you make at the airport or port when you arrive. It outlines what personal goods are following you in subsequent shipments.
And where do you get it?
You collect this form upon arrival at the immigration or customs area before you leave the airport. If you forget to collect or complete the C2T7 form, it complicates the entire customs clearance process for your household goods later. It could potentially jeopardize your duty concessions and cause massive delays and costs.
Wow, so that one small piece of paper dictates the success of a major shipment. Okay, finally, step 8, the psychological preparation.
Step 8, emotional and cultural readiness. This is all about managing reverse culture shock. Things have changed. The slang is different. The service tempo and system processes will be frustrating. You have to proactively manage family expectations about financial support and boundaries.
And you'll be seen differently?
For a while, yes, you will be labeled from foreign, and that identity shift can be really jarring.
So how does the guide suggest accelerating that integration process?
Through active participation, it recommends a 90-day integration plan. This includes volunteering once a fortnight, attending a civic or community meeting, like for a neighborhood watch, and hosting a small meal for your immediate neighbors. Consistent presence is what moves you from being an outsider back to being a true community member.
So it all circles back to Dean Jones's core philosophy.
Exactly. Treat your return like you'd scope a development. Sprint plans, owners, due dates, and a burn down of open risks. That structure is what turns hope into a successful project.
Okay, so if the blueprint is the plan, then Jamaica Customs is the supply chain phase of our project. The guide is emphatic that navigating this gateway correctly can save returnees, and I'm quoting here, hundreds of thousands of dollars in duties.
That saving is the ultimate prize, but it requires meticulous preparation. The process is managed jointly by the Jamaica Customs Agency, the JCA, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, or MFAFT, specifically the Returning Residents Unit.
So let's just quickly reconfirm the eligibility for the Returning Residents Program, the RRP.
Okay, the key requirements are you have to be 18 years or older, a Jamaican national, or an eligible spouse. And crucially, you must have lived overseas for at least 3 consecutive years and be returning permanently.
And this extends to others as well.
Yes, they also extend this to dual nationals, Jamaican students who studied abroad for over a year, and those who are working on contract overseas, like nurses or ship workers. The key is the proof of residency abroad. Tax returns, utility bills, tenancy agreements. It has to be comprehensive and easily verifiable.
All right, now for the good stuff, the concessions, the financial incentive to return. What are the key categories of duty-free items?
The most generous concession is on household effects, duty-free. This covers basically everything you need for a home. Furniture, clothing, kitchen appliances, tools of trade, books, personal computers. The list is long.
But there's a massive caveat here that often trips people up. It's the distinction between personal effects and commercial intent.
This is the danger zone. The items must be used. If you show up with 10 identical, brand new, unopened coffee makers, Customs is going to see that as commercial importation, not personal relocation.
So what are they looking for?
They look for bulk packaging, retail tags still attached, and excessive duplication of items. The insight here is really practical. If you bought new furniture for your move, unbox it, use it for a week. Remove all the retail tags before you ship it. Customs needs to clearly see evidence of prior use.
That is a brilliant, actionable tip. Okay, what about the vehicle concession? This is often the biggest single financial saving for people.
The motor vehicle concession allows one motor car per family, provided it is no older than 6 years from the date of manufacture. And, very importantly, it must have been registered in the returnee's name abroad for at least 6 months prior to shipping. This documentation is vital.
Can you bring in other types of vehicles?
Yes, you can also import a light commercial vehicle, like a pickup truck, up to 3 tons, but you have to be able to prove it will be used for professional work.
But the guide warns about luxury vehicles. Why the extra scrutiny on those?
Well, high-end luxury cars, even when they're used and within that 6-year limit, they often exceed the maximum allowable value for a full-duty concession. So while you might save a substantial amount, you could still be liable for duties on the excess valuation.
And that could be a lot of money.
It could be tens of thousands of US dollars, easily. So if you are debating between a modest used sedan and a high-end SUV, the sedan will almost certainly clear duty-free, while the SUV risks some unexpected and very high charges.
Good to know. And the third category is the tools of trade.
This is critical for professionals. Doctors, contractors, artists. You can import your specialized equipment duty-free. However, you must provide verifiable evidence. Your professional ID, certifications, or maybe letters from employers or clients justifying why you need that specific equipment. This ensures a returning contractor can get back to work and be productive immediately.
This all brings us to the logistics of actually moving your items, the great to ship or not to ship debate. How do you weigh that sentimental value against the really high costs?
You have to do the math. You calculate the cost of replacing an item in Jamaica versus the total cost of shipping it, and that includes wharfage and brokerage fees. Often, replacing bulky, non-sentimental items like basic IKEA furniture is actually cheaper than shipping it. But if you have family heirlooms or specialty equipment, then the move is justified.
So let's detail the 3 main methods of shipping and the risks that come with each one.
First, you have the reliable barrels. These are highly cost-effective. They hold about 200 liters and cost somewhere between US $80 and $165. They're great for clothing, non-perishables, small appliances, and they tend to clear quickly, often within a day or two of reaching the port.
Okay, what's the next step up?
Next is LCL, or less than container load. With LCL, you're only paying for your cubic footage in a shared container. It's affordable for a moderate amount of goods, but here's the critical risk.
There's always a risk.
The risk is that the clearance for an LCL shipment is tied to the slowest and most poorly documented shipment in that same container.
Oh, wow. So if someone else's shipment gets flagged for bad documentation, everyone waits.
Everyone waits, exactly. Your goods could be held up at the port for weeks, racking up storage fees, all because one person in that container failed to declare their inventory correctly. This is the hidden danger of LCL that the guide really warns about. You are totally dependent on the documentation quality of strangers.
Which makes the full container, a 20-foot or 40-foot, the preferred method for a full household move.
Yes. A 20-foot container can hold the contents of a 2 to 3 bedroom house. And while the base cost is high, we're talking US $3,500 to $6,000 or even more, depending on where it's coming from, it's sealed exclusively for you at the source. That dramatically reduces clearance issues.
And it's almost necessary if you're bringing a car.
That's the key. If you are utilizing the vehicle concession, the container cost is often completely justified by the massive savings you get on the car duties alone.
We absolutely have to address the hidden costs. These are the surprises that just destroy budgets.
The biggest surprises are the fees that are charged after the freight arrives in Jamaica. You have to budget for wharfage and handling fees, also called CAF, but more dangerous are the port storage fees, or demurrage.
And those add up quickly.
They rack up daily if your goods are not cleared promptly. A minor delay can turn into a massive expense very, very quickly.
And what about the necessity of a customs broker? Is this something you can do yourself?
It's almost mandatory to use one. A licensed customs broker streamlines the whole process. They handle the documentation, they deal directly with the JCA. Their typical fee, maybe $40,000 to $80,000, is a non-negotiable part of your budget. Trying to clear complex shipments yourself, especially with a vehicle, is almost guaranteed to result in delays and higher fees in the end.
So if there's one single most strategic action a returnee must take regarding customs, what is it?
Contact the MFAFT Returning Residence Unit at least 3 months before you ship anything. And schedule your RRP eligibility interview before your shipment arrives at the port. You cannot clear your concession goods without that MFAFT letter confirming your status.
And there's a time limit, right?
Yes. Remember, the clock is ticking. All your concession imports must occur within 6 months of your official arrival in Jamaica.
Let's pivot to the financial project phase. The guide makes it crystal clear that having solid financial systems in place is essential for resilience, especially because the Jamaican dollar, the JMD, is subject to volatility and inflation.
Stability absolutely starts with secure local banking. The main players are the commercial banks like NCB, Scotiabank, Sagicor, JN Bank, and also building societies like VNBS. Most of them offer dedicated diaspora services, which should be your first point of contact.
And what are the absolute minimum requirements for opening an account? What do you need to walk in with?
Okay, the mandatory requirements are pretty consistent across the board. You need a TRN, taxpayer registration number, and a pro tip is to get this online via TJE services before you return, if possible. You'll also need a valid photo ID, a passport is best, proof of address, like a utility bill from within the last 90 days, and proof of income, like a pension letter or a payslip.
But the procedural headache for overseas returnees, the thing I always hear about, revolves around document verification.
Yes, the infamous requirement for notarization or an apostille. For documents issued overseas, like a proof of pension letter, birth certificates, marriage certificates, to be accepted, they often have to be authenticated.
Okay, can you break that down? What's the difference between notarization and an apostille, and when is that apostille mandatory?
Sure, notarization just means a public notary verifies the signature on the document. An apostille, however, is a much higher level of authentication. It's used for documents traveling between countries that signed the Hague Convention.
And the banks will ask for this.
The banks, and especially the National Land Agency, will often require the apostille for significant transactions, like a property purchase. It's cumbersome, and it can be expensive, and it has to be obtained from the relevant government authority in the country where the document originated before you leave.
So this is part of that pre-planning.
Absolutely. Always prioritize getting key legal documents apostilled before you get on the plane.
So once the accounts are open, what is the optimal banking setup that the guide recommends?
You should open both a JMB checking or savings account and a USD savings or current account. Enable online banking and bill pay immediately. And schedule that chat with the diaspora desk. They can advise you on streamlined processes for your incoming wire transfers.
Let's talk about managing that overseas income, like pensions or remote salaries, especially in the face of currency fluctuation.
The Jamaican dollar reality is non-negotiable. The rate fluctuates. Right now, it's roughly $1 USD to J155 to 162, but the annual inflation, typically 5–7%, means the cost of your groceries and your utilities will rise faster than your JMD nest egg will.
So what is the hedging strategy recommended by the guide to protect yourself from that?
The core strategy is dual currency management. So you negotiate local bills, pay for groceries, and handle your daily transactions in JMD, but you keep a significant portion of your savings, your reserves, and your incoming wire transfers in USD or GBP accounts, either abroad or locally in a USD account.
And that shields you.
It shields your capital from JMD devaluation. For transferring the funds, compare the banks. They're reliable but have variable rates, with third-party services like Wise or Remitly, which often have better rates, but you should always confirm the security protocols.
This transition leads directly into the critical safety toolkit, scam prevention. Why does the guide identify returnees as specific targets for scams?
Because returnees are seen as the perfect combination of factors. They're perceived as cash-rich, culturally naive about the current local hustle landscape, and potentially overly trusting of long-lost acquaintances or even distant family members. This vulnerability has to be addressed proactively.
So let's expand on the 5 top scam categories the guide identifies, maybe with some real-world scenarios.
Okay, first up, lottery scams.
Huh.
This is where you get a call or a letter saying you've won a massive prize, but you have to pay taxes or clearance fees up front to claim it.
The red flag seems obvious there.
It is. The red flag is immediate. Legitimate lotteries do not require you to pay money to receive your winnings. The tactic often uses an emotional connection, claiming to know your family name to build false trust. Second, and this one is pervasive, are the real estate scams. Here's the scenario. You find a beautiful rental property online. The owner, who is actually a scammer, demands a non-refundable deposit via personal account transfer to hold the property.
And the red flag.
Legitimate realtors use escrow or agency accounts, not personal ones. Scammers also engage in double-selling properties using forged titles. Always use the National Land Agency, the NLA, to verify the title status before any payment and confirm the agent is registered with the real estate board.
What about scams that involve trust, like relationship scams?
Relationship scams, sometimes called romance fraud, involve individuals who feign deep affection for a returnee to extract increasing amounts of money for fake emergencies, business investments, or medical bills.
So what's the warning sign there?
The urgency is always high, and the demands are always personal and require secrecy. Don't tell anyone, but I need. That's a huge red flag. Then there are the smaller but equally damaging everyday hustles. This is where a contractor takes a hefty deposit for materials and labor and then just disappears after doing minimal work. Or an unvetted taxi driver takes a grossly circuitous route and charges a massive fare.
So what's the universal defense against all of these different tactics?
The golden rule is never rush. Scams rely on creating a sense of urgency to bypass your critical thinking. Never pay significant amounts upfront without documented verification, receipts, and a legally binding contract that has been vetted by your attorney.
And the personal bank account thing.
That's the kill switch. If anyone requests a deposit be transferred into a personal bank account, walk away immediately. No questions asked.
Finally, what are some practical safety habits for digital and physical transactions?
Use ATMs that are only attached to recognized bank branches, and always cover the keypad with your hand. Enable two-factor authentication or 2FA on all your financial and email accounts. And this is perhaps the hardest one.
That's that.
Avoid oversharing your wealth on social media. Do not post pictures of your new property, expensive purchases, or travel plans until well after they occur. Maintain a low profile. Your strongest defense is a trusted network of verified local professionals. Your lawyer, your banker, your realtor, who can screen opportunities and verify identities for you.
Okay, we established the plan and the budget. Now we have to look at the daily maintenance required for our homecoming project, utilities, and healthcare. The guide is very candid that getting connected is the first major test of patience in Jamaican readaptation.
It really is. It's the first place where that overseas efficiency butts heads with local reality. Let's start with electricity, which is handled by JPS, Jamaica Public Service, the sole distributor.
And the shock factor here is the cost.
Precisely. Jamaican electricity costs are notoriously high. They're often double or even triple what returnees are used to in the US or the UK, and that's largely due to a reliance on imported fuel.
So what does that look like on a monthly bill?
For a standard 3-bedroom house with regular AC use, your monthly bills can easily range from $25,000 to $45,000 JMD, and much, much higher for large homes with central air or a pool. That budget projection needs to be very realistic.
And what about reliability?
You have to prepare for frequent and sometimes prolonged power cuts or outages. This is why the guide notes that many resilient residents invest heavily in backup solutions, generators, solar setups, or deep cycle battery inverter systems. When you're securing your JPS service, make sure you have your TRN, your ID, and your property documents ready, and expect to pay a security deposit.
Okay, moving from power to water, handled by the NWC National Water Commission.
Water pressure issues and scheduled or unscheduled outages are a constant reality, especially in rural areas or during the dry seasons. And this isn't just an inconvenience, it affects your hygiene, your cooking, your daily function.
So what is the essential non-negotiable investment here to counter that?
A water storage system. The guide is unequivocal on this. You must invest in a water tank and pump system. The recommended sizes are between 400 and 1,000 gallons for a standard household. This investment gives you independence during those outages.
And how does a return perform that necessary NWC water pressure review we mentioned earlier?
You don't just ask the seller, you have to test it yourself. During your due diligence phase, ask the seller or the landlord to go without running their main pump for 48 hours. See what the residual pressure is like, especially during high demand hours, like between 6 and 8 a.m.
If it's weak.
If the pressure is weak or non-existent, you immediately factor in the cost of a robust system, which can easily run into $150,000 to $300,000 or more for the tank, the concrete base, the pump, and the installation.
Now, for those working remotely, connectivity is absolutely paramount. Who are the main providers?
FLOW and Digicel are the primary providers, and they offer fiber in densely populated urban and suburban areas. If high-speed internet is essential for your income, you must confirm fiber availability at a specific address before you sign any lease or sale agreement.
And for rural areas?
Satellite internet like Starlink is becoming a very popular alternative. It provides island-wide coverage where fiber hasn't reached yet, though it does carry a higher initial hardware cost. Also, you have to remember that WhatsApp is not just a messaging app in Jamaica, it's the primary communication utility. It's used for official communication, for business, for social coordination. Everyone uses it.
And what about the reality of purchasing goods from abroad, from online stores?
Forget relying on Jamaica Post for timely international packages. It's just too slow. You have to establish an account with a U.S.-based freight forwarder, like Mailpack or ShipMe, who provides you with a Miami address. Your online purchases ship there, and then they are forwarded to Jamaica. That's the standard mechanism now for efficient consumer imports.
Let's transition to healthcare. The guide confirms the painful reality of the public versus private systems.
It's a hybrid approach, really, born of necessity. The public hospitals, like KPH or Cornwall Regional, are free, but they are often severely overcrowded with very long waits. Private facilities like Andrews Memorial or Guest offer superior service, better infrastructure, and significantly faster care, but at premium prices.
So what do most returnees do?
Most returnees utilize private care for routine and urgent matters, and only use the public system for the most severe, subsidized emergencies.
Which makes local health insurance absolutely critical.
Yes. Your overseas policies will rarely provide sufficient local coverage. You have to secure local insurance from a provider like Sagicor or Guardian Life. And for seniors, the guide warns that the premiums can be substantial, ranging from $3,500 to potentially $15,000 plus USD annually, depending on your age and the coverage tier you choose. This cost must be factored into the retirement budget.
And the National Health Fund, the NHF, how does that fit in?
It's a lifesaver for managing chronic conditions. Returnees must register to access subsidized medication for illnesses like hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease. It doesn't replace your insurance, but it dramatically lowers the recurring costs of necessary pharmaceuticals.
The reality of emergency services, we need to be honest about that.
The 110 ambulance service is often delayed, particularly outside of Kingston and Montego Bay. The hard truth is that in many parts of Jamaica, families just cannot wait. You have to plan your route to the nearest public and private hospital. Know which neighbor or family member can drive you at 2 a.m. Your emergency plan cannot rely solely on the state infrastructure for an immediate response.
And what about preventative health advice from the guide?
It says to focus on the local risks. Diligent use of mosquito repellent and nets to prevent dengue. Maintaining excellent hydration in the tropical heat. And a dietary balance. The food is incredible, of course, but managing the reduction of salt, sugar, and fried foods is essential for your long-term health.
So as we move into the final phase of this project, the integration, the guide smartly recognizes that the challenges are dramatically different based on your age. Let's start with the largest group of returnees, seniors aged 60 and above.
Right. The senior motivation is often about family connection, peace, and stretching a fixed pension. So the project focus must be on health and accessibility. Housing needs to be senior-friendly, single-story or with elevator access, safety rails and bathrooms, non-slip tiles. And they need to be close to reliable medical care and often their churches.
What's the unique challenge that seniors face when they return?
Isolation and maintenance. If they settle far from family, loneliness can severely impact their health. The guide advises actively joining community organizations to combat this. Furthermore, they need reliable, vetted help for home maintenance and yard care. They often require reliable transportation, a dedicated driver, or a trusted taxi service, as navigating the local roads can be very stressful. There's a quote in the guide from a returnee in Mandeville that really encapsulates it. He said, Coming back wasn't about dying here. It was about living with meaning again. And that requires community engagement.
Conversely, what drives the young adults, say in their 20s and 30s, and what are their unique challenges?
They are driven by career opportunity and lifestyle. They're looking at sectors like BPO management, tech development, construction, or niche real estate. So their project plan needs to prioritize networking. They have to use LinkedIn, alumni groups, and professional associations to build contacts before they even arrive.
And financially, they often face a different kind of risk, don't they?
Yes, the local job market can be competitive, and the wages are often lower than they might be used to abroad. So the guide strongly advises building and maintaining a USD income stream through remote work or freelancing, if at all possible. This provides a hedge against inflation and currency risk, and it allows them to participate in the local market without being wholly reliant on local wages.
And their primary safety concern shifts a bit, from physical isolation to more of a digital vulnerability.
Exactly. They are generally more digitally savvy, but they're also more prone to oversharing. They have to be extremely vigilant about who they trust when they're building new professional circles and absolutely avoid posting real-time locations or obvious markers of wealth online. That just makes them targets. They need to rely on secure, vetted transport options, especially late at night.
So for all generations, community is that essential support structure. Where do we find that anchor?
Community lives where people show up consistently. Churches and faith groups are massive social engines and often sources of trusted referrals. Service clubs like Rotary or Kiwanis are excellent for meeting established, civic-minded professionals, and importantly, local civic and neighborhood groups, and especially neighborhood watch organizations.
That 30-day integration plan you mentioned earlier helps move past the hurdle of just showing up for the first time.
It demands commitment, the plan says. Commit to testing the fit of one or two groups, maybe spiritual, service, or fitness, consistently for 30 days before you commit long-term. This consistent presence is what transforms you from being back to truly belonging. You are earning your place in the community through participation, not just by your arrival.
Let's synthesize all the safety advice into that layered approach the guide calls the safety toolkit. It has 3 layers: hardware, habits, and humans.
Okay, hardware is the physical security you install immediately. Change all the locks the day you move in. Install motion sensor lighting, alarms, cameras. Use sturdy deadbolts. It's your first line of defense. Then you have habits. These are your behavioral modifications. Engage in cash-free dealings whenever you can. Be discreet about package deliveries. Share your live location with a trusted family member when you're traveling late. And never, ever leave valuables like phones or bags visible in your car. And finally, humans rely on your network. Join a neighborhood watch that's supported by the GCF. Know your trusted neighbors. Save the core emergency contacts in your phone, Police 119 and Fire Ambulance 110. Have a contact list of immediate family and professionals taped to the fridge.
The final administrative hurdle the guide talks about is mastering e-government. This seems crucial for eliminating those long, frustrating queues.
It's a game changer for your quality of life. You need to establish and master 5 key online accounts. TJE services for your TRN and tax matters, MyJPS and NWC Online for utility management and monitoring your consumption, MyFlow, MyDigital for your telecom services, and PyCA for passport, citizenship, and work permit matters.
And the security on those is important.
Crucial. Use unique, strong passwords and 2FA on all of them, and store scans of your physical documents securely in the cloud. Efficiency here translates directly into saving time and reducing bureaucratic friction.
We must touch on climate resilience. Hurricane season is from June to November every year.
This is a matter of survival, not just convenience. Home hardening is essential. Securing roofs, trimming trees away from structures, checking your drainage systems to prevent water pooling. The goal is to have a 7-day self-reliance plan.
7 days.
Yes. Enough non-perishable food, potable water, and power backup, whether that's a generator, inverter, or your water tank, to survive independently until services are restored. You cannot assume the government can reach you immediately after a major storm. #tag outro.
This deep dive into the Jamaica Returning Residents Guide has been so comprehensive. It really demands that we move past that romantic vision of homecoming and embrace the practical reality of execution.
Absolutely. We covered the necessity of that 8-step relocation blueprint for minimizing risk. We detailed the massive financial value of maximizing Jamaica customs duty concessions. We established the strategy for banking and hedging against currency risk using USD accounts, and we outlined that layered approach to safety and community integration.
It seems that returning home is this profound journey that requires balancing the emotional pull of the heart with the strategic discipline of the head. It's a massive project.
And the most important insight from Dean Jones, I think, is this. The most resilient returnees are those who view their homecoming not just as a move, but as the launch of a self-managed development project.
A development project.
Yes, it has to have a risk register, a financial budget buffer, and a dedicated team of trusted local professionals, your attorney, your realtor, your broker, to guide you through the local terrain.
That brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. If your return is a project launch, what is the single, tangible, specific project milestone you will set for your first 30 days in Jamrock? Will it be successfully securing your NHF card, hosting that first small meal for your new neighbors, or maybe completing the installation of your 1,000-gallon water tank system? The success of your homecoming project rests entirely on your ability to plan, prepare, and execute those initial milestones.
Choose wisely and start building.
Until next time, keep diving deep.